Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Creator's Circle. I'm your host, Lucy, and today we are here with another very special guest. We have Dom, and she is the founder and creator behind Couture Cupcakes. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dom.
Hi, Lucy.
Hi. Yes, so thank you so much for joining us today. And I want to just start off by giving you the opportunity, and also me the opportunity, to learn more about how you got started baking and what led ultimately to where you are today.
Okay, so for starters, I've always baked since I was a little kid, and my family cooks and they bake, and it started from there. And I just used to bake all the cakes and cookies and stuff for the holidays. And then one day in high school, I just decided I'm going to bring cupcakes for one of my friends, and she didn't like chocolate, so I'm like, what I'm going to do with all these cupcakes? So I just started selling them. And then I was like, oh, I can do that and sell it. And but it kind of died down. But after I graduated high school, I had a few friends that we bake really good. You should do this as a business. I had family telling me the same thing. So I had started looking for names to name my business. I used to be Cupcake Savage, and then brought it down to Couture Cupcakes because I like pretty things, but really tasty things. So Couture, and I see Couture like as a boutique, and that's how I would want my bakery to look like a boutique company.
Yeah, and I really like that you describe it that way because I was going to ask this question later, but I'll do it now, I guess. Looking at the kind of different flavors and the different cupcakes that you do, they're very unique and sort of bold and different flavors. And so I think that it goes to how that you're the way you're describing it, that these are boutique, they're unique, they're really flavorful. And so when you're getting into starting or thinking about a new flavor, what what's your process behind that? What inspires you? And is it ever trial and error where you try something and you're like, did not turn out the way I thought it was going to, so let's retry, make some changes, and see what happens next?
Okay, so for like the flavors, I'm always thinking about fusing things together, and so my process is I can smell things, and once I can start smelling, I can taste it without actually tasting it because my nose is super sensitive.
Hmm.
So if I smell them, like, oh, that would taste good with that, I'm gonna try that. And my family, they're still my guinea pigs. I'm like, hey, we're gonna cook this. Tell me what you think, and then if it's just this, it's going to be called something pretty, like anything from a boutique or something like a French name. That's what I think about when I think about flavor. So, like, my favorite flavor right now is called the Golden Cafe, and it has berries in it. And when it bakes, it's like this golden puff. It's so cute. So I call it the Golden Cafe, and it looks really pretty when I decorate it. So that's how I do it. I just start naming stuff really like anything that's pretty that you'll see at a tiny, cute little boutique or a cafe or something like that. Mm-hmm.
And so this just popped into my head. Are you ever out and about, maybe you're traveling or you're just visiting somewhere new, whatever, and it hits you and you're like in this environment, like, I need to try to make a new flavor using, something that's inspired me here. Do you ever find yourself feeling that kind of way?
No, I haven't. Not traveling wise, but maybe going to a restaurant that I haven't been to before, and I will take something that is uh, paired with something else that I would never think of. Because I'm a big foodie, so I will always try to go to new restaurants. And
Hmm.
then when I see it, I was like, let me write this down. I'll put it in my phone. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this. And sometimes it doesn't go good with cupcakes or cake, and it's like, oh, never mind, throw it out.
Uh-huh. Yeah. No, I'm one, I'm a big foodie, but two, I'm a really big sweet tooth. So you cannot stop me from getting dessert. It doesn't matter. I want it. And so, but one thing that I do have a problem with is like the salty sweet idea because for me, because I'm such a sweet tooth, I love the sweetness to it and I don't really get the vibe where I really want something that's salty on the side. And so, I see where you're saying that like sometimes you think that you want to work with fusion and these two maybe ideas that don't seem like they go together really well, but then when they are paired, it makes something really different and unique and really awesome. I think that that's really fun, but again, I like am very sweet oriented, so I'm always looking for the most sugar possible.
I can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
cut down the sugar because I know my mom first started. My mom has like high blood pressure and um, died. My aunt is she was diabetic, so I think about all the people that they want to eat sugar, but they can't really eat sugar. So I try to cut that down a lot. So, but if you want something extra sweet, you just gotta tell me upon request because I just try to look out for the best of people. I don't want to just be traditional and like, no, this is straight sugar. It is what it is. No, I like to look out for all the people across the board.
yeah, and that's actually, really important. I'm one person that just, like I said, has a huge sweet tooth, but that's,
Mm-hmm.
really important to be really considerate of who you're baking for in the moment, and that
Yeah.
everybody has different, obviously, taste buds, but then also different diets that they're working towards for whatever reason. Maybe it's like a health and fitness goal, or if it's because as a result of an illness or a disease. And so that's
Yeah.
really great that, you're willing and able to adjust what you do for the person that you're baking for. That's really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very important. Now I'm trying to work with vegan.
Yeah.
Like, I did my first vegan banana pudding cake, and my best friend, she was recording everybody eating the cake. And everybody is not vegan, but they were like, oh my God, this tastes so good. It tastes just like a banana pudding, a regular banana pudding cake. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I got that. But
Yeah.
it's really hard to be a vegan because a lot of stuff is so dense, and it's hard trying to make it everything so fluffy, but you got to be really patient, and it's very tedious when it comes to being like finding the right ingredients, what a vegan can eat and what a vegan can not eat. Yeah, so I'm still studying on that
Yeah, no, I actually have a lot of family members who are vegetarian or pescatarian or in that vegan space. And so
one.
I'm often blown away by some of the things that they'll bring and I get to try because it tastes, just like as good as you would think the real thing is. And you don't sometimes expect that.
I used to think I was so ignorant when it came to people being. I was like, "Where's the flavor?" But I had to try it for myself. I'm like, "Oh, it's not that. This is nothing."
Yeah.
Okay, I think I can. Yeah, I can do this. And, I will order something sweet just to see how heavy it is and how if it's dry, if it's really sweet, what kind of sweeteners do you guys use, all that. So yeah, that's a whole different world.
Mhm. Yeah. And so, did you ever feel like it was kind of a science experiment to try and make the right combination and make things, work in just the right way that it, felt and tasted similar to the real thing, even though the ingredients that you're using are so different?
Yeah, yeah. It's like you have to be in that lab for maybe a couple of days just to make sure that this tastes like my grandma or my aunts. favorite pie or cookie. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah. And so do you ever find yourself really frustrated or disappointed in the moment when maybe something that you're trying that's new, whether it's, vegan baking or just a new recipe in general, and it doesn't work out exactly right? Like, how do you overcome that? And how do you keep trying even though, sometimes you don't know until it comes out of the oven? And sometimes that takes a while. It's a long process to get there, you know?
How I overcome is I go back to the drawing board, read the ingredients that I put in from the first time, see if I can take something out and substitute it for that, and just try to start over. And sometimes if it doesn't come out, I'm crying at the same time, writing stuff down. Like I'm a crier, so I get really emotional. If I'm mad, happy, or sad, there's tears rolling down my eyes. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a buzz.
Yeah.
And then it just comes out flat, or it's just overflowing in the oven. It's like, oh my goodness,
Mhm.
that's the drawing board.
Yeah. But I can relate to where you say, sometimes even though I'm still trying and I'm working on it, I'm crying. And it's because this is what you're passionate about and you're putting so much into it. And when it doesn't work out, it feels so hard. But the fact that you keep trying and you're willing to go back until you get it right, that's a sign of perseverance. And at the end of the day, I think it leads to a much more better end product when you're willing to put in the hard work that it takes.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And sometimes I will leave it for maybe a month or two and then come back.
Mhm.
Because sometimes I really feel defeated and I think I just failed. I'm like, okay, it's been too long and it's looking at me, so let me go try it again and see
Mhm.
what happens next. So yeah, that's how I am. It just depends on how big the task is and how long I will process it and see what I've done wrong and then go back in the kitchen and try again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's really difficult, especially when you have a vision in mind for what you want it to turn out like. If I'm working on a t-shirt or a drawing or something, and I have this idea in my head that's like fantastic. And then when I get to the actual doing of the task and it doesn't turn out, it can be so frustrating because you're like, this is what I want and this is where I am. And they do not
Yeah.
match up. But I think there is value in, putting something down, even if, depending on the amount of time. It could be, I'm going to walk away for an hour or I'm going to walk away for a week. And no matter when you come back, I think it gives you a new mind, a fresh set of eyes, all of those things that really help you get through the problem solving process and help you see it through to the end so that you make it.
Yeah, yeah, it's you'll have like you'll be more grounded and you won't be as frustrated when you come back.
Mhm.
So, and I learned that in therapy. Just taking some time to breathe and
Right.
process everything. Process your feelings. Feel your feelings. So yeah, I've learned that along the way too, and that helps me a lot.
And so, it's interesting that you bring up therapy. Do you find baking, and maybe not in those stressful moments where you're working on something new and it's, not really working out the way you want, but just in general, the act of baking and, being in the kitchen, do you find that really therapeutic for you?
Yes, it really is. And especially with the right music, yes, it's very
Yes.
therapeutic.
Yeah, you got to set the mood. Do you,
Yeah.
so for example, me, if I'm cooking, I don't like people watching me. Like if I'm having people over and they're watching me in the kitchen, I'm like, please go somewhere else. I cannot have this pressure. Do you like to bake or cook alone? Do you like having company? How do you feel about that?
I like having company now. Like early days, it was like get out the kitchen. Now, just don't touch nothing, don't look at nothing, don't ask. No, you can't have this. No, you can't have that. You can't even have juice right now. No. But now I'm streaming on Twitch when I bake. I ask for help now. Like if I have extra pair of hands, or if one of my friends wants to come bake with me, I ask them to come over and we just jamming and baking whatever we got on the menu for the day.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah,
And,
and I have a little helper too. My little 5-year-old niece, she knows when I'm getting ready to bake. I'll pull out the mixer and she's like, "Oh, can I help? Can I put on my spoon today?"
oh, I
She's
love that.
ready.
Yeah. I kind of, your niece reminds me, I grew up in kitchens just because my mom is a chef. And
Oh,
so, in the summers when I didn't have school or anywhere to go, I would wake up really early in the morning with her and go open the kitchen, and I would just be in there running around, probably not really helping, but there. And I think that instilling that in children at a young age is so beneficial, not only to the fact that they'll be able to cook and prepare for themselves later in life, but just the act of making the kitchen somewhere that people want to be, and that is a good place. Because I think particularly young adults, if they grow up and they don't really get in the kitchen very often, I think they're more afraid of being
mhm.
in there. And food, not only is it so like satisfying, for you and me, if we're foodies, we love it, so it brings us joy, but it's also a necessity. And so it's important, even if we don't, enjoy it on that level that other people do, we still need it to nourish our bodies. And so
Yeah.
at some point we have to get in the kitchen to some extent.
Yeah, I firmly believe that start them off young, bring them in the kitchen, even if they don't want to be,
Hmm.
sit them down, just give them a book or a carrot or whatever you pick away. Like, here, try this. Here, try this.
Yeah.
that's how I. That's how I got mine certain things. Like she's a really picky eater, but when I cook, she knows what I cook is good
Mm-hmm.
versus her mommy. So, so I was like, okay, we're gonna try this together and see if we like it.
Hmm.
And that's how I get her to get used to different vegetables. But she loves fruit. We have no problem with fruit, but vegetable is just a different ballgame.
Hmm.
So it's fine. We're we're trying, but I do firmly believe get the kids in, get them involved in something so they can see, oh, this is how my food is being made.
Hmm.
Even though I don't like it, I see it.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's really important to just in life in general, it doesn't have to be just cooking, but for example, somebody mowing your lawn or somebody painting your house, to put eyes to a situation, to recognize the effort and the time and everything that goes into it. If you go out to a restaurant and somebody brings you a plate and you never see the kitchen, you're just like, okay. Versus
Yeah.
all of the time that it took somebody to, work on that recipe, to actually cook it, to present it to you. I just think it's so, important to recognize the work behind what you end up with at the end of the day.
Uh, yes. That's especially for the holidays when you come to your aunt's house and you can see the food all prepared, but when it's your turn and it's your mom's turn to cook, you see they prepping a day or two before the big event, and it's like, oh, so this takes 2 days to make this, and it's like, yeah, it took me a long time to understand that concept. And I was like, oh God, 2 days to make a big dinner?
Yeah.
And
No.
it's going in a minute.
Yeah, I grew up, like I said, my mom was a chef and my grandmother really likes to cook as well. So we would always host, like, even outside of the big yearly holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever, even just like on a random Friday, they would host dinner parties and have people over. And I feel like that's so lost on like the younger generations. They don't do that anymore. And I've always like dreamed of when I get a house, which I do now. Me and my boyfriend just bought a house. But yes, like when I was little, I dreamed like I'm gonna have a dining room and I'm gonna have people over for dinner and we're gonna cook. I think that that's just so important to get back into that because it's something that, it takes a lot of time, like you said, and it can be stressful. But
Mhm.
you don't have to like show off. You don't have to go out. You don't have to spend a whole bunch of money. And it's a really good time to connect with one another.
Yeah, that's a great bonding time. I like that.
Yeah.
And that's also your mom is the chef. So I know you've seen a lot of things and tasted a lot of things. Were you her guinea pig?
Well, she has worked in a number of different places. So definitely when I was younger and she was here, um, I would try. She said I was very adventurous when I was little, that I would try just about everything, which I'm kind of surprised by. But um, then she worked in the French Quarter in New Orleans for a few years. So she's all about
Oh,
that. And then she's moved to Missouri now. She actually lives in St. Louis, but every time she comes to visit, I love when she comes to visit because it's like I get to have a personal chef in my house for however long she's here, and she makes any and everything that I ask for. So yeah.
I'll say, man, she's traveling. Oh man, that's awesome. I love that for you.
Mm-hmm. And so in your process, I know baking is a little bit different than like traditional, just regular cooking. But do you ever like grow any of your ingredients? Like, I don't know, maybe you're using like mint or something, or maybe like fresh fruit. Do you ever grow any of that yourself?
No, I haven't. Not yet. I'm working on the backyard right now. It's not up to par yet, but when I get there, I will start growing my own fruits and veggies, what herbs, whatever I want out there. But as
Yeah.
of now, no, everything is coming out the store at the moment.
Do you like the idea of gardening and things like that, or does it seem,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, I
um,
love going. I started in the front yard already. I put marigolds in the front, orange and yellow marigolds. I think the yellow one is from Africa.
oh,
Oh yeah. And I put some other purple flower down. I forgot, but I am really into gardening because I used to be a plant mama, and then I don't know what happened to my babies. They just perished.
oh,
So I got to start over.
yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, I love gardening. And my uncle, he has his own garden, and I used to shop in his backyard, get my greens and watermelons and cucumbers out of his backyard. So I can't wait till my backyard is almost done.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. I think gardening, like, I love the concept, but I hate one, I'm very pale. So being outside is like a really big risk. Two, it's super hot, as you know. And then three, like the dirt. I don't really know about that. But I love I'm a really big tomato person. Like I eat tomatoes like I um I eat tomatoes like they're like popcorn. People eat popcorn in like handfuls. I eat tomatoes like that, like little grape tomatoes.
those things are so lovely. I love them.
Mhm. So I love the idea of growing
Mhm.
my own tomatoes, but I don't know if I'll ever get there.
I think the tomatoes are the easiest ones because you can either grow them in a pot and just watch them grow. I think you should start just try the cherry tomatoes and see how you like
Yeah,
it. Because I think
definitely.
that's but yeah, I can't wait. I'm waiting for the grass to fully grow because half of it is just mud and dirt and the other half is just grass and it just doesn't look good. But I will love go back there. I look like an old lady with this big old sun hat and gloves, and I will move the umbrella to where I'm going and like fix, just pull weeds out and stuff. Yeah, that heat, Texas heat is crazy. I can't deal with it, and I lived here my whole life. I still can't deal with
I know. Yeah.
it.
I feel like every year around this time of year, I'm like, man, this is the hottest summer yet. And I'm pretty sure they're the same, but
And then you hear on the news, oh, this is record-breaking weather. It's like, why? It's like,
yeah.
Jesus. Heat advisory. It's like, oh my God.
It's ridiculous. I literally this morning, I got out of my car and I had the AC on in my car, and I get out and to the heat and my glasses fog over. Like that's the difference.
Oh my God. That's crazy.
Yeah. It's like that's way too hot. If it's doing that, that means it's way too hot.
That's after that.
Cool. Well, so another question that I had, and I don't know if there's an exact answer to this because I feel like sometimes just in the creative space, no matter what you're doing, that the whole process is really satisfying. But is there a favorite part of the baking process for you that you just, I love when I do this part of the process?
I love when I'm mixing everything together so
Hmm.
I can see how everything mesh well, especially when I'm trying something new or like a new flavor. I can just see the changes of everything in a bowl being mixed. That's my favorite part, the mixing part.
Interesting. Yeah. I always think that the decorating part is going to be my favorite. And then I'm always surprised, I don't know why, when I can't do it really well. Like I think, oh, it's going to be so easy. I'm going to make it look so good. And then it doesn't. And, so I don't know.
It took me a long time to like get my decorating technique down. You should see my early pictures. They're horrible. And I'm like, oh my gosh, looking at the growth and watching YouTube and just figuring it out on my own. Yeah, it was, yeah. My decorating hand was shaky. I was shaky, everything. But yeah, decorating is my least part, but everybody loves my decorations and everything. But it's the mixing. I love mixing stuff. I think I've always been like that since I was a kid. I used to mix a lot of stuff that I wasn't supposed to mix when I was a kid. Like, oh my gosh, I was a little scientist. I
Mm,
used to I used to do a lot of stuff. So, oh yeah, mixing. So decorating is not it, but
yeah.
I love it once it comes out how I envision,
Hmm.
and it comes out even better than what I envision most of the time. So yeah.
That's good. Mine are definitely a letdown, but that's okay. Um, And you mentioned, you were a little scientist when you were younger, and I think baking on like the outside, it doesn't look like it's science, but it is kind of, you have to get the right ratio. You have to make sure that, the temperature's right. All of these things have to be correct in order for it to turn out the way that it's supposed to. And
Mhm.
so I think it is science.
Really is, especially when you're dealing with yeast and the the icing and the frosting. Like basically, your kitchen, you need to start your kitchen off freezing cold because
Mhm.
if you while you're mixing your frosting, it's going to separate if it's too hot. Even though you put the right amount of ingredients, it still will separate if it's too hot, and that that was a disaster one time. I was upset. So yeah, you science is definitely in play with that. You have to be very precise and oh yes.
Yeah. And, something that just comes to mind when talking about that, you also have to be really patient. I feel like some people, it's not like a really quick process. They're not gonna, unless you go and you buy those like 5-minute mug cakes or whatever, you can put it in your microwave. But baking in general, you can't rush it. And if you do, you're sacrificing the in quality. And
Mhm.
the end, like taste, texture, all the things. So you have to be one, precise, and then two, really patient in order to get a really good dessert at the end of the day, whatever
Um,
it is.
yeah, that's why I've learned that why bakers start at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to get their day started before hours before they open because it takes time
Mm,
and I am bad with time. I am bad with time. So I would have to have at least 3 or 4 alarms so I can get up at a decent time so I can start my process, even though it may be 2 dozen cakes. I mean 2 dozen cakes, 2 dozen cupcakes.
a lot of
I
cake.
still have to get up. Yeah, I still have to get up just in case something goes wrong, just in case I'm missing something. I have to run and go to the store and go get it. So yeah, starting early, I truly understand that saying bird gets the worm, something like that.
Yes. Hmm.
Yeah, that. I get it. But
Yeah.
that I'm so bad with time management, but I've gotten better over the years.
Do you feel like you lose sense of time when you're in the kitchen or you're making something?
Sorta. Like if I'm having fun and if it's just me and I'm just playing in the kitchen, yes. But
Hmm.
if I am doing something, doing an order, I'm looking at the clock like every 5 minutes, just trying to wing it. Like, okay, I have until this time to finish this, and then I have them this time to finish this, and then I can be on the road by this time and bring it to them before this due date, this
Right.
due time. So yeah, I'm looking at the clock constantly.
Right. And so have you like narrowed down a really streamlined process that works for you? I know obviously I don't bake all the time, but sometimes I get caught up in like, oh, I should have started that earlier. I should have done this first and now I'm like, here and I'm waiting or whatever. So have you like
Mhm.
narrowed down, I do this first, then this and
Yes, I did. I do, especially depending on what you order. I know what to do first, and then I do the rest. The everything else will fall into place. So I always start from the hardest thing that I need to do and finish with the easiest. That can be done within 10, 15 minutes.
yeah, cool. And so I guess, do you have any advice, especially, thinking back to when you first started, for bakers who are maybe hesitant or people who just don't know how to get started? Anything that you can say or any advice that you can leave with them to encourage them to get started or any tips to get started?
I would say have a group of people that you trust that will be honest
Hmm.
when you're baking. So basically, have your guinea pigs on standby, have like a baking party, and just do it. And make sure they either write down or tell you what's missing, what needs to be added. You need honest people
Right.
on your side because you're like, oh, it's good. And it's really not when somebody else tastes it. So have honest people in your circle for sure. And if you feel scared to do something new, freaking do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Even if it's late at night, just do it. Just get up and do it.
Hmm. Yeah, just get started. Um,
Yeah.
Something that you said that reminded me of something else. You mentioned that, if you have the wrong type of people as your guinea pigs, they'll tell you that something's good and then you'll take it to, a customer or whatever, and it's not really. And
Yeah.
so that's something that I struggle with, even if I'm making something that I'm familiar with, that I know, this is the recipe, it always turns out well.
Mhm.
If I'm not able to try it first, I'm like, "Ugh, is it gonna be good?" And so how do you well, you as somebody that bakes a lot, that makes the same thing consistently, how do you ensure time after time that you're going to get the same quality, great tasting product at the end of the day?
I don't know. I just know.
Yeah.
I just know when you do something not consistent and you know exactly how it's going to turn out,
Mhm.
because you know that you didn't miss any ingredient. You just know, like, especially by looking at it and by smelling it. I'm a person with my senses is my sight and my smell.
Mhm.
Half the time I don't taste it because I can smell it. Because if it doesn't smell right, okay, I something not right. I'm doing something. But if I taste it, I don't know. I really don't taste the stuff that I'm used to doing on a consistent basis because I just know. But
Mhm.
something new I'm tasting all the time and I have to clean my palate just to make sure, okay, this is what it is. Okay, this tastes right. Hey,
Mhm.
come here. Come taste this real quick. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I'll get my niece, I'll get her because kids are very honest and
Mm.
she's a picky eater. So yeah, I'll get her to say, hey, come here and fix this.
Yeah.
And she does this, yeah. But
Cute.
I just know that, okay, this is gonna be good.
Well, I think, and it goes back to the point that you said, like you watch it come together, you know what it's supposed to look like, you can smell it as it's baking and everything. This is your routine. So if something doesn't feel right along the way, you know it's not going to end up right, and it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
You don't have to taste it. You just feel it in your gut, like
Yeah,
this is not right. You know?
yeah. You just it's just that you just know. I
Hmm.
don't know how to explain that, but in any profession, you just know when a song isn't sounding right or your paint, that color,
Hmm.
it ain't looking right. You just
Right.
know. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and to the outside person, especially, you mentioned paint. Somebody on the outside might be like, it's just orange, what are you going to do to change it? And they're like, it's
It's
not the
like,
right orange. It's not,
yeah.
you know?
Yes, it's like, nah, it's too much red in there. And it was like
Yeah.
on the outside, it's like, it's orange though. Yeah. So
Right.
yeah.
But I think it's important to have that critical eye, even about your own work, even though
Yeah.
you want it to be good and you want it to be perfect, to recognize, okay, this time it's not right. I'm going to redo it and make it better. Next time it's going to be right.
Hmm. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
And
So
so,
that's huh?
oh, I was just gonna say, did you have to build up any sort of like tough skin with regard to hearing people tell you what they think about your food? Because I mean, even if it's perfect and it tastes great, you're not always
Mhm.
gonna please everybody. Not everybody likes the same things. So did you ever run into like, okay, how do I feel about people telling me when they don't like what I make, or if I need to make adjustments? Did you ever have to combat anything like that?
Yes, I did. When I started making, for example, when I started making peach cobbler, um, a lot of people make peach cobbler the traditional way, like they put pie dough on top and then sugar and cinnamon on top. I don't do that. I
Hmm.
use a different method, and a lot of people like it. But I did have two people that ordered from me, and they didn't like it because it wasn't traditional, and I had to take them like, okay, I'm sorry. But was it good? It was like, yes, they like it, but they just prefer the traditional way. And I'm not a traditional person when it comes to baking. I just like to break those barriers. But if you do request I would like something traditional, I'll do it.
Hmm.
But yeah, it took me a minute. Like my little feelings were hurt when they said, "Oh, I didn't like the breading
Hmm.
on the peach cobbler because peach cobbler is like a staple in our culture. It's if you don't do it right, you no. So, but everybody loves it.
Yeah.
Everybody else, like those two people. So, yeah, it kind of hurt my feelings, but I grew some skin, revamped it. I was like, okay, some people are not gonna like non-traditional things that they're
Right.
used to. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I also think that it's important to try something new and different and put spins on those traditional dishes and the things that we're
Mhm.
used to having the same way because, it's kind of like what we were talking about earlier, those flavors that you're like not sure are going to work together. But until you try, you're never going to know. And it might be something totally unexpected and totally like outstanding. And somebody has to try it, you know?
Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
That's like the scary and exciting part when you're trying something new and traditional in a new way. It's yeah, you get all nerves and everything. So
Mhm. Yeah. No, it can be tough, but I think it's not only a reflection of the work that you do, that you're willing to try something new and it turns out well and people really like it, but then too, it's a reflection of just the person in general, that you're resilient and willing to, come up against something as traditional as, a peach pie or a peach cobbler that people want,
Mhm.
they expect to be one kind of way, and you're like, but I want to try something different, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely a hard thing to not overcome, but to get past that mindset that I'm used to it being this way.
Hmm.
Like, yes. So it took me a minute to get used to that, but I'm gonna keep pushing through. I'm gonna keep breaking those rules when it comes to food, because sometimes food is meant to be changed. Like how these generations are changing, they taking something old and bringing it new and adding their spin to it. That's what I'm doing. And
Right.
that's what I want to continue to do, especially with our traditional foods that we eat, especially on the holidays. I'm not cooking traditional things.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
still going to be the same, but it's not going to be the same. I'm not putting pork fat in my stuff. Absolutely not. No.
Right. No, and I think that another thing that kind of like prolongs this idea of traditional is people get comfortable. They're like, this is what I
Yeah.
do, this is what people like. But sometimes it's fun and scary
Mhm.
to say, but what if we did it different? And how could we do it different? And if we did it different, how like how could that change what we get at the end? And so I think it's hard, especially in, with family, and if your family is like multi-generational and everybody's
Mhm.
used to having that kind of same thing, to break that.
Mhm.
But sometimes it's the best thing in the end.
Yeah, it really is. And especially when I have some of my grandma's recipe books,
Hmm.
they really down to the T, like how she used to make them.
Hmm.
It's hard for me to get that side of the family to try my stuff because they so used to, oh, grandma didn't make it like this. She made it like this. I know.
Yeah.
It's like, here, just try it. Just see if you like it. And if not, then I'm not gonna stop doing it. You can make it how she wants to make it, but I know you're not gonna do it.
Hmm.
Her writing and her how she has a lot of steps.
Hmm.
So I try to reduce those steps
Right.
and yeah, and like set it up a different way. And that is hard when it comes to the older generation, trying to get them something to try something new that is still the same, but it looks new to them.
Right.
It's stressful. But I'm still pushing. They like some things, but it's still hard trying to get them to write the other things, like the mac and cheese. I'm not touching that right now. I'm not touching the mac and cheese right now. And the way my grandma made it, that's home. So I don't want to touch that. That's something I don't want to touch. So
Right.
yeah.
And something that I wanted to add, and I'm only speaking for myself, so if you feel
Mhm.
differently, like please tell me. But
Okay.
when you do put a spin to somebody that, like the matriarch, like your grandmother, you are not, it's not to be disrespectful or to say that what she did was not great or outstanding. It's almost like, I loved it so much, I want to see what else it can do. You know what I mean?
Yes, I want to. It's like I don't want to play with it, but yeah, I want to. Let's. let's throw this in here and see if it would enhance this part, this flavor, and the garlic or something. And I totally understand. I get where you're coming from. So yeah, I don't want to. It's like I don't want to step on those toes. I don't want to disrespect the food that brought us together and stuff and reminds us of home and grandma. It's yeah, I get that. Yeah. So yeah, me and you, we're on the same page with that.
Good. Yeah, so I think that what you're doing is really unique. I think it's definitely exploring different areas that some of us are really afraid to explore, but that we need it to not only broaden
Mm.
our horizons, but broaden our taste buds, our palates, and I'm here for it. So I'm excited to see what you're going to come up with next. I'm excited to get into all your different flavors. I'm like looking at your page, and my mouth is watering. Um, so thank you so much for talking with me today. And again, I'm just looking forward to seeing everything that you're going to do moving forward.
Yes, a lot of things that's coming up. So I'm really excited. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So then without further ado, we'll close out this episode. Thanks for joining me again, Dom. I'm going to leave a link to your Instagram in the show notes for anybody who wants to check out her page or again, just like mouth and eyes all over her food. And thanks for joining me. And just remember, episodes drop weekly on Wednesday. So stick around, join us next week for another conversation with another creator. All righty. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.